I've got Jay here, of course, VP of Marketing. Great to have you.
Good to have you.
All right, so Jay, let's get into a couple of things. First, Avalanche, Avalabs, all connected now, tied into some pretty amazing innovation. We've had John on the show a couple of times, a couple of your other team members in the gaming side. From the NFT side, when you look at where smart contracts are going, what Avalanche is doing as a blockchain, talk to me a little bit about some of the new stuff that you guys are starting to venture into.
Yeah, before maybe the new stuff, maybe a quick foundational setting of what's happened in the last few years in NFTs. NFTs really started as, hey, we can actually create unique, identifiable assets aside from fungible assets effectively. And initially, it really started to go into collectibles. CryptoKitties was an early innovation. Same with the CryptoPunks.
Right.
And it didn't really seem like it was going beyond that sphere of kind of innovation effectively. And now I think what we've seen is it started to hit a little bit of the mainstream audiences, and now people are trying to understand, okay, how does this actually function within our day-to-day? And so at Avalabs, what we've been really monitoring closely is what are the real use cases of NFTs that could be very interesting beyond just the collectibles.
Utility.
Exactly. The utility is kind of the buzzword in this case. But with the context of this week, what we're really focusing on is art. And art is really a fascinating ecosystem, especially when you think about Web 2.
Yeah.
If you talk to a lot of artists who really blew up in the Web 2 space, especially with social media, they really found social media to be an amazing platform to get their artwork out far and wide.
Okay.
What really then started to happen is kind of the centralized, decentralized philosophy started to come into play, where all of a sudden you had this one entity, these massive companies like Meta, Twitter, et cetera, calling the shots of what these platforms should be doing, not necessarily understanding what the users and their customers really want out of it. It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And so the writing is starting to be on the wall, and all these artists are starting to turn left and right and saying, well, when I used to generate X amount of money for 500,000 followers in 2015, no longer is that the case today. And I think they're trying to figure out what can be innovated with blockchain. It's still a little bit early, but I think that energy is exactly what we're trying to capture. And so we're trying to figure out, again, that real use case, maybe using NFTs to fight counterfeit art, for example.
Okay, big part.
Other ways to digitize the asset, I guess, is a kind of a low-hanging idea as well. There's probably other things that we haven't really considered. And so we need to get these artists to be evangelized by the idea of using Web3 first, come into the spheres of our land, and really have positive discourse or open discourse about what works and what's not. So then we can actually find a solution to a problem that exists as opposed to creating a solution before the problem.
I like it. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Avalanche as a whole, the blockchain. Who's using it now? What are some of the big use cases? I know John and I have talked about this many times. You guys have done a lot, just in a very short period of time. What's new there in terms of use case on the Avalanche blockchain?
Yes. So Avalanche is, just to put into consideration of the audience, it's only about 2 years old.
Yep.
And so it's really, really young still. But even that said, one of the main areas that we focus on that you probably know of with John on the show is really DeFi and institutional use cases. Yep. That's still very much strong. I think certain things in the market, of course, have kind of wavered some of the confidence with certain people that were on the fringes, but that's still okay. People who have conviction will still continue to push through that and pursue those opportunities on chain effectively. Other areas that are new within the last year or so is really that NFT vertical that I mentioned earlier. I think gaming is also a huge function, especially with subnets. I think there's also interesting use cases as it relates to dev tooling. I think everyone is really kind of taking a piece of Avalanche right now because of the main value proposition of sub-second transaction finality, and of course other things as well, but that being kind of the main value proposition. Of course, now we have a robust ecosystem. There's actually a lot more appealing things beyond just the technical superiority of the platform as well. And so in terms of actual stats, we have about 55 million transactions this month. And we have about, I think, 500 active wallets.
And it's, Avalanche has been kind of, I think earmarked as one of the potential, layer ones that could really make a big break here in terms of, if you look at where Solana is and just some of the things, not that this is a competitive scenario, but if you look at some of the pitfalls that we've seen in other layer ones and where Avalanche has kind of gone, obviously what you're talking about in terms of transaction speed, big deal. Granted, this is going to really kind of evolve also in the metaverse space into NFTs, kind of where that is going. you look at that and where your roadmap is going and how you guys are prepping for this, 2022, 23, what does that look like right now?
Yeah, so I think broadly with layer ones, but us specifically as well with Avalanche, what really is important is reliability. Yeah. Reliability is something that doesn't prove itself out even within the 2 years. We have full confidence that we can continue to push that reliability and still scale at the level that we've been scaling at to date, and hopefully even more efficient. And so I think as the next maybe 2 to 3 years or even sooner, you're going to start to see some of these layer ones that touted reliability within the shorter time span or time horizon and really not be able to fulfill that promise. And I think the industry is going to get a little bit savvier about that and really be much more intentful with the decisions that they make with their blockchain infrastructure choices.
Yeah. I think that's a good move. Talk to me a little bit about the creative side. Japanese anime, you guys have a little bit of a connectivity there.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a big market for you guys?
Yeah, we do. So Gree is one of the partnerships that we unveiled, I think, a few months ago. Gree is one of the largest gaming companies in Japan. The Japanese market, so I'm Japanese too, so it's actually kind of a convenient question, but the Japanese market is totally different from the Western market, especially in gaming. That's maybe the obvious broadly, but with gaming, it's especially true. Mobile devices are really high in use, and also the ways games are structured is also very different. One type of game is called a gacha game, which means gachapon is the long term, but effectively it's a little bit, the Japanese government wouldn't like me saying it this way, but it's basically gambling in a sense, where you have this gamified aspect within games using real money. Now this is totally not on chain as traditionally, but if you can kind of see the line that I'm drawing right now, on chain use cases where you can actually use monetary value to actually participate in the game, that seems like a no-brainer to me. And so I think Gree and other gaming companies in the Japanese market and also Chinese market as well are really well positioned to really understand what are the users and gamers want out of this ecosystem and how can we actually make this come to life.
Yeah, I look at that and then I think about Metaverse partnerships, what we'll see in blockchain, but more importantly, where the evolution of some of these massive markets are going, whether you look at online gaming, you look at mobile gaming, aspects around anime, you look at just the aspects of what we may see in the VR and the AR space in terms of a lot of IP being developed.
Yeah.
Metaverse-wise, for Avalanche and Avalabs, what would be one of the lanes for you guys to say, hey, in 3 years, Paul, this is where we think we'll be Metaverse-wise?
The early innings of metaverses, I think we're just going to have to start hedging with certain ecosystems. No one in this industry knows for certain whether it's going to be one holistic metaverse or multiple metaverses. I think there is this idea that probably it's going to be multiple if you compare kind of notes from past industries and cycles, right? Like multi-chain is another narrative that started to build up the last 5 years. And so I think the IP is not necessarily the focus so much, but really things that are meaningful to the end user and the end fan. Metaverses, to me, I think are another way to engage the fan base, especially in the context of anime and manga industries. And so if you can actually bring to life the characters, if you can bring to life your own persona, your own ego into this virtual world, I think that's an amazing, amazing step forward.
Yeah.
And hopefully that actually happens on a performance chain like Avalanche and not one that is slow and cumbersome to use. I think the UX is always kind of our priority.
Yeah. Well, with that, you guys can kind of hear DCENTRAL's getting a little rowdy here as we start to wrap up the day. I want to get into this, Jay, and that is when you think about onboarding, all right, and kind of the evolution of where onboarding is going to happen. You guys, in terms of wallets and the process, because you're talking UX, and right now, when I go onto Avalanche, you look at the onboarding opportunities there that are in play across the industry right now. That seems to be one of the more clunky elements for a user from a true user experience scenario. How far do you think that's going to come in terms of advancements in the next year?
In terms of actually attracting the mainstream audience, you think?
Yeah, mainstream, and also I think just in general, crypto, even the natives, to really kind of enhance what that chain is doing, especially from an onboarding standpoint. Maybe someone's never popped up an Avalanche wallet before, so that process is kind of next. Maybe some of our users, same kind of thing.
Well, no, hopefully that's happening right now on a rolling basis, actually. And so Core is actually a product that Avalabs has launched, which is a wallet that exists on the browser extension side and also the web interface side on the browser side. And what's really important in terms of our worldview is we want to simplify UX not only on the app level, but all the way down to the protocol
There
level.
you go.
If you build amazing UX from the ground up, then all of a sudden it's not going to be as difficult to really improve any layer that kind of follows beyond that. And so we really are kind of working in parallel. On the Avalanche protocol side, we want to absolutely make that simple. So at the end of the day, no one should really care too much about what Avalanche is. They just know that it kind of powers these things.
That right there is the key. Because once you can get back past that point for any kind of onboarding scenario, then you've overcome what is one of the biggest issues and thresholds to adoption that I think all chains are kind of facing today. Jay, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
More about Avalabs, so great to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much.